All right, peace and much love. Zin Uru here. Just want to say hip to my nobility. It's good to be back on camera. Good to be seeing everybody. Got a new microphone, just working on the production a little bit. And actually working on a website right now. Going to be releasing a website in the next couple months. And I want to take the traffic that I have from all my various social media pages and start redirecting it to my website when the time is right. But I've said this in the past, I'm going to say it again. It's time for some content to come out. And I feel like this is the perfect time right now. Because, you know, last year we did the Gospel of Hip Hop study. We read through the whole entire Gospel of Hip Hop. Then the teacher started teaching, and every Sunday night he's got the broadcast coming from the Temple of Hip Hop. And so what these are going to be, these are just going to be lessons for really right now and the future to tune into. Just some insights that I've gathered, some insights that I've gained through my past 15, 16 years in the Temple of Hip Hop, as well as my 47 years here on earth. Well, actually this year, 2021, will mark the 48th year. I'll be 48 years old this year in 2021 in July. But I've just picked up some things along the way that, God willing, I could pass on to my nobility, those who are my age, those who are older, and especially the younger generation. I'm speaking to the younger generation when I talk about this stuff in hopes that you can avoid some of the same traps, mistakes, and obstacles that I've faced and others I've known have faced. And so as you grow into your adulthood, you can have a more secure, more peaceful, more stable life, a more adventurous life, know God's will, plan, and purpose for your life, and really live a fulfilled life. So, you know, I ain't gonna lie, my life is fulfilled. I feel good about my life. I'm so grateful that I quit the matrix, I quit the rat trap back when I first joined the Temple of Hip Hop and started touring with the teacher. I'm so grateful that I exited the matrix, and although it's been a struggle, although it's been an adventure, it's been well worth it because my soul is nourished, the inner man is nourished, my God force is nourished, my Christ is nourished, and there is nothing greater than that feeling, especially for those of us who are spiritual minded. You know, there's nothing greater than the feeling of the inner man waking up with a warm heart, or the inner woman waking up with a warm heart, the inner being feeling warm inside, trusting God's will, plan, and purpose for our life, seeing that no matter what's going on in the world or the craziness, that God is right here, right with us, right now. You know, I've studied a lot over the years. I've studied Taoism, studied Zen, I've studied Buddhism, studied Christianity, studied Islam, studied Hinduism, studied the New Age movement, studied all of these different systems of beliefs and found jewels in all of them, but also found things that kind of, they weren't really for me. And then as I discovered my hip hop self through the gospel, well, before even the Gospel of Hip Hop was written, started discovering really my hip hop self as my hip hop spirituality, and realizing that I've been that my whole life. That's why I was able to pick up all of these different books from these different religions, these so-called different belief systems, these different histories, and they always work together for me. They always just, like when I picked up the Tao Te Ching for the first time by Lao Tzu, an ancient Chinese wisdom book, which I'm actually going to share a little excerpt from that a little bit later in this talk. When I first picked up that book, it resonated with me. When I first picked up the Bhagavad Gita, it resonated with me. The truth of it resonated with me. As I grew up in a church, so I was always reading the Bible, but it was when I studied it on my own, when I studied the words of Jesus the Christ, when I studied the apostles, even when I go back and study the ancient histories of like the Israelites, there were lessons in there that resonated with me for who I was at whatever time that was in my life. And, it's still happening. It's still happening now. So I just want to encourage my nobility to, turn off the computer, turn off the YouTube videos. As great as they are, we've got these tools that are at our disposal. But we can learn a lot by sitting and reading the classic literature, the classic texts of ancestors from many different walks of life and many different eras in the existence of earth. We can learn these spiritual lessons from these people, those who walk this path before us. And then we can apply it now, which is what the hip-hop consciousness and the hip-hop side is all about. We can apply that now in our day-to-day living. And let me tell you right now, man, the world's gone crazy. I think you know what I'm talking about. You know, the last message from the Minista I was talking about how there was a certain state of apathy that we were all feeling in 2019, and there's all this complaining going around in 2019. People complaining about not being able to go and do this, that, and the other, and then the whole pandemic hit. And after the pandemic hit, everybody was sent home, guys stay at home. A lot of people missed work, didn't have the bills to pay, the money to pay the bills. A panic started setting in for real. And I was right there with you all. We've been right there with you. We had a great full 9 months of reading the Gospel of Hip Hop by our teacher, KRS-One, and studying that book in depth all through 2020 and kind of launching us into 2021 with a clear mind, body, heart, and soul. But, we took 2019 for granted. We took a lot of things for granted back then. And, I never heard anybody's predictions that were really serious, that just laid out what 2020 was going to look like. Okay, now there was those who was studying Agenda 21, Event 201, studying these things, seeing what, the World Economic Forum, seeing what the so-called Illuminati, the so-called elite, the so-called powers that be, the powers that want to be, that they had planned, to usher us in through this virus and usher us in through this and start putting people on lockdown, more surveillance, this, that, and the other. But that's the way that the world plans, right? And for those of us those of you really who are stuck into that world plan, it can come as quite a shock. Because people are going along on their day-to-day living. They're going along and they're just, robotic living, going to work, going to school, going on plans, and then those plans shift. And then that person, a lot of people are waiting for those powers that want to be the government to tell them when it's okay to do things, when it's not okay to do things, really how to think and how to feel. But let me tell you something. God's written down a few plans. I mean, the prophets have, the book of Revelations, the Hopi prophecies, which were actually written down a few years ago. It's not all the Hopi prophecies, but some of them, they got together, wrote a book called the Hopi Survival Kit. But the point being is God didn't write everything down. Like, God doesn't write God's plan down. God doesn't have this big books and meetings going, okay, this is my plan, and this is what we're going to do in 2021, this is what we're going to do in 2022, and this is what we're going to do in 2023, and so on and so forth. That's the ways of the world, and that's the fallacies of the world, because it takes God out of the equation. And you can see we're living in a system that the devil designed, for real. Like this system is taking God out of the equation. If you really want to get deep on that, I'm not going to get onto it here. Go study the God gene. Go study the God molecule, the VMAT2 gene, VMAAT-2. Study that. Just study that and see what that's about, because they really want to take God out of the equation. Well, I'm here to tell you what we're about, what the humanity's about, what Minista Zin Uru is about, what the Temple of Hip Hop is about, what God is about, what our ancestors are about, is putting God into the equation. Putting God, realizing that God has a whole other reality going on daily around us, that the ways of the world, the New World Order, the Republicans and Democrats, they don't got nothing to do with it unless it's God moving them as pawns. Because remember, even the devil serves God. Even the devil has to ask God for permission on what to do. So who are we as children of God? What is our responsibility as children of God? The last few days, I live in Texas, and I usually don't put out where I live online. I think it's just, privacy is a requirement of God. But just for this discussion's sake, I'm living in Texas right now. And, the last week, the power went out in Texas. It was a big deal. The snow hit Texas, and freeways started shutting down. People were in accidents because Texas is a warm southern climate, doesn't get a lot of snow. And it was icy, and it was cold, and pipes were freezing, and pipes were bursting, and the power went out. and water went out, and life stopped. Life, in a lot of ways, came to a halt, and people started panicking. I mean, really panicking, running out, buying up whatever they could buy up, like that was it. Like the lights are out, the stores are going to be shut down forever. You know, think about the trauma from 2020 when the stores when the pandemic first hit and the stores were closed down or people were emptying the store shelves. You know, like that wave of panic just hit Texas again. But it was snowy and icy and people couldn't get around, and Texans ain't used to driving hardly at all in snow or rain. You know, I lived in the mountains for a few years, so I know how to drive in the snow. I know how to get up when it's freezing cold and the electricity's gone off and your water pipes are frozen. You got to go 3 or 4 days with just what you have, and maybe hopefully you're prepared, and that's what I want to talk about is the preparation work. But it's hopefully you're prepared to just kind of endure the storm. We talk about that in the seasons in the gospel of hip hop. We talk about in the sixth overstanding, the seasons. We talk about weathering the storm. You know, don't try and outrun the storm, but when the storms of life hit, and in this case, a real storm hit, which caused an emotional storm in people, when those storms of life hit, are we prepared for those storms of life? You know, now I looked at here in Texas, and I found out something I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared for the water to shut off for 3 days. Not being able to flush the toilet, not being able to wash the hands and face. Like, wow, all of a sudden I was like, yo, I got some drinking water, you know, I'll keep gallons and gallons of drinking water on hand at all times. But you know, this is $1 a gallon. You're washing your hair and teeth. I mean, you do a little bit of brush your teeth, get a little glass of water. But, you know, bathing your whole body, all this, that, and the other, you know, like all of a sudden now the toilet won't flush. That's a big one because I'm living in a major city. We don't got trees outside. We could just go do our business like the forest you can. You know, no outhouse outside with no lights on, like the water to flush the toilet. You know, I made a quick video showing how our ingenuity has to come into play in a situation like that on my Instagram. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the point being is that a disaster hit Texas, and you know, some people were prepared. We don't hear about those people. They don't put the people who were prepared on the news because they want everybody else in the world to be panicking with those who are panicking in Texas. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who were prepared. There was many Texans who were prepared. The media doesn't show that because it doesn't help ratings. But the truth is there were a lot of Texans prepared. Texas is one of probably the most prepared states in the United States, if not the most prepared state in the United States for disasters. Now, maybe the local government wasn't prepared for that amount of ice and just showed their ineptitude and their inability to think on the spot. For real, man, someday the lights could go out. Someday society could shut down. And, that ice was real. Take a moment, too. I'm not even going to bring it all up on here, but study HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, weather modification. Texas has vast lands of empty land, and that's where a lot of the HAARP technology is out here in Texas, unfortunately. So, that storm, was it from God? Was it God's judgment on Texas for a few days, or did we're up in the 70 degrees and all of a sudden it drops down to the 10 degrees, 11 degrees outside, and that snow. I've been in real snow before. That snow was not your normal snow. It didn't pack right. It just something felt off about it. They were spraying chemtrails for the last 2 weeks all over Texas. More than normal, because I go out walking every day so I could see the chemtrails flying over Texas. So study that HAARP. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. What I'm saying is you got to know that there are forces out here that are working against our humanity and plotting against our humanity. And when the storms of life hit, whether they're man-made storms or whether they're nature itself, we have to be prepared as hip-hoppers. We have to be prepared as spiritual people as well, as those who walk in the Spirit. Because being physically prepared is one thing, but even being mentally and emotionally prepared is another. But being spiritually prepared, that's where the real genius comes in, the genius of God. That's when the real truth comes in. Because there are situations in life that we're going to face and that everyone faces where eventually all of their physical preparations aren't going to sustain them. All of the emotional and mental preparations, having a strong mind and gotten the emotions in check, that helps. But what happens when you haven't eaten or you haven't slept for a while? You know, what happens if certain things happen and you're not able to function the way you're used to functioning, resting the way you're used to resting, cold. Just being cold can change a whole range of emotions, go through people who aren't used to being cold, and then all of a sudden it's cold. It's like freezing cold, and you're walking around with a heater on in the house when it's cold, and you're feeling good, and you got the sweats on and the t-shirt, and then all of a sudden you could see the frost out your mouth, and there's no logs, there's no fireplace, or whatever the case may be. You know, and this wasn't the first time I've ever lost power. I've been in cold situations growing up, especially, you know, living where I've lived these past 15 years as the Minista. I've been in hot situations with no air conditioning, just, you know, without no food, having to go 3 or 4 days with just a box of cereal and a couple, you know, a gallon of water, you know. But those times that we go through in our life when we go without, those empower us, and if we don't, and we can't forget those lessons of when we went without, when we do have. And when we do have, we should always give thanks, you know, because thanks is gratitude towards God is really where the language of God opens up to us. So getting ourselves prepared. Are you really prepared for the days to come? I've been saying that for many years in my rhymes. Are you really prepared for the days to come? And, you know, things aren't going to lighten up. It's like, you know, this is what they call, quote unquote, the new normal. This is what they call the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We have AI making decisions for governments right now at this very moment. Artificial intelligence is making decisions for humans and for the way that humans move and interact, you know. But once again, those of us who tune into God and realize that God is making our decisions for us, God is guiding our directions for us, that's the actual future. Because there will come a time, maybe in our lifetimes, maybe not, but maybe somebody in the future sees this and like, yo, it's about to happen, that technology just shuts off completely. They talk about a electromagnetic pulse coming from the sun, boom, and wiping out all electronics, erasing all the computers, just stopping everything, like this wave coming from the sun and wiping it all out. Scientists have talked about that. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Maybe we just naturally decide to shut off all this technology. We liked Earth better when we were dreaming better, when we weren't so anxious and anxiety ridden. Because I'll tell you something, when those lights went out and the internet went down and the cell tower reception went down a few days ago, it was like all of a sudden my brain just went boo, and it was quiet. And this pressure of being in these EMF fields, these electromagnetic fields, created these radiation fields. You know, this is microwave energy that's coming from our cell phones, coming from the 5G towers, coming from the cell towers, coming from the box that, you know, the internet, the Wi-Fi box in our house, coming from the router in our house. These are electromagnetic waves coming from the smart meter, coming from the smart whatever else that's smart in the house, coming from cars, coming from all these smart cars, all this electromagnetic frequency tied to the internet and the cars and all those computers in the cars. All of this stuff is hitting us at once. And when that turned off, when it went from everything being on, woo, 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 to off, woo, it was so peaceful. It was profound. The dreams were so soft. Waking up the next morning, so easy. So easy. The depth of the sleep, because I wasn't worried. I was like, the lights will be back on in no time. Doesn't feel like the apocalypse to me. The lights are going to go back on. The water will come back on. But, once again, there was people panicking right outside, right out. I took a drive to just kind of go see what was going on. And once the power came back on, it was wild. There was lines out every store around the block, stores selling out of stuff. This is after the power's gone back on. There were lines at all of the fast food around the block, blocks of cars just ready to get that fast food because for 2 days we didn't have Burger King, It's wild like that. And I was like, wow, yo, check this out. Like how fast would society really fall if these things like the stores and the fast food and the water and the electricity all got shut off? I mean, I used to think it maybe take like 3 or 4 months, but after really seeing that, society can fall apart in 72 hours. Go a week, people will be rioting and looting and shooting. And that is no lie. And we got to be aware that that can actually happen. Is tomorrow guaranteed? Is tomorrow really guaranteed? Did you have a promise of tomorrow? Did God just write you a promise, say tomorrow is guaranteed? Now, there's a soul part of it. It's like, yeah, I know I'm going to be alive tomorrow. That's what I got to look forward to. But what is guaranteed to you? What does the universe owe any of us for real? Well, I actually think we owe the universe for our life. I actually think we owe God for being here. And that comes with a huge responsibility because we've got to be doing something back for God. We got to start be looking out for God first in all things, because God is looking out for us, so why we ain't looking out for God? Life is looking out for us, why we ain't looking out for life? Panic comes and people aren't prepared for that. People aren't ready for that. God is. Those of us who tune in to God, going on daily, guiding our direction, what up? I got a few things prepared. I've got, a disaster kit, got those things that if we ever need to just leave, jump in the car and go, a couple extra cans of gas, some gallons of water, some food, some dry goods. But, how long is that supposed to last? How much can we really gather up all these things? Okay, now I'm secure. People will be building like underground bases and bunkers and prepping and ready and go, now I'm secure. And then what if the invading army lands in your city and takes it over? You're going to just sit under that underground bunker? You're going to want to get to somewhere else. How much are you going to carry with you when you got to go? I've been thinking about this for a long time. Remember Y2K? I was ready. I was ready for Y2K. Moved up through the mountains. The computers were going to be going off. I was like, woohoo! Started planting food. Started sowing food again. Ready. And then it didn't happen, Then it didn't happen. Nothing happened. But it taught me that at that time, I was asking myself questions like, what do I really got to know, God? What do I really got to be? I should be able to defend myself. I should be in some kind of shape. I should be able to fast and go without. I should have certain things around me, certain techniques, certain knowledge. But really what God was telling me all the time was you got to get your spirit prepared, Zin Uru. You got to have your soul ready for what's to come. And for me, what was to come, what was to get my soul ready was touring with the teacher. That was insanity. Go from being a landscaper to being KRS-One's right-hand man for years and the temple of hip-hop and becoming Minista Zin Uru and the gospel of hip-hop and writing that. Like, you got to get prepared for that in life. But if you're not spiritually prepared for your purpose will show up and you're going to miss the opportunity. And then it'll show up again and miss the opportunity if you're not spiritually prepared. And I really think that, we have got to start taking care of our spiritual selves better and we've been bombarded with all this new age. It's always about the law of attraction. What can the universe do for you? What can your spirituality do for you? Well, what can you do for your spirituality? What can you do for the universe? What is God, some great baby mommy and daddy, and he's supposed to give us everything we want? Oh, you want that law of attraction? Okay. Presto manifesto? Okay. Nah, God. That's for kindergartners. That's for preschoolers. That's for little kids to learn. Grown adults, man, we got to be thinking about building our own city. If we don't start thinking about this, what? We're going to keep going through what we went through this election over and over and over again in these cycles, where cities can just shut our water and shut our power off, where a guy like Bill Gates can buy up all the land of the earth and say it's his, and then have everybody in the World Economic Forum tell you, no, you're going to own nothing in the future and you're going to be happy about it. Is that what it is? That we just become this global useless class of people? Because that's what they've got designed for us. Stick a microchip up your ass when you're born. You become a global useless class of people. Let those who are supposed to die, and then let the top 1% of the top 1% own everything, control everything through AI, surveillance, and computer technology. Is that the world that we want for ourselves? No, because that's not the world God planned for us. Because that old world, the New World Order, sat on a wall. The New World Order had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the queen's men, they couldn't put their world back in order again. The New World Order, it's failed. They're desperate. I heard Minister Farrakhan say, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan say, he said, be aware of the times that we're living in. He said the devil is going down right now, and he's trying to take as many of y'all with him as he can. And that's what's happening. They're wanting to shut our economy down, change the economy, move the economy around. Are you prepared for the days to come? Some people got guns, some people have been training military style, got the pads on, got the bulletproof this, that, and other, probably got a Humvee underneath a tarp, ready to go, machine guns blazing. You gonna kill everybody? Not saying don't defend yourself, have the ability to defend yourself, but really, what is that about, the days to come? And what does that mean for hip-hoppers? Most of us living in the inner cities and the cities throughout the United States of America and the rest of the earth. What does that mean for us? What does it really mean to be ready for the days to come? What does it mean to be prepared for the days to come? Well, get your heart right with your Creator. Get the heart right with Creator. And that is the simplest, easiest thing to do. I don't have it here with me, but the Hopi Survival Kit talks about that as the earth goes through these changes and the new earth is born, as the new cycle is reborn, that all of the old is going to fade away as the new comes. To get right with the Creator first and foremost, through song, through dance, through lyrics, through those core 4 elements, breaking, MCing, graffiti art, DJing, start speaking to Creator through your art, through your heart. Take that time, that silent time to sit there in meditation, affirmation, and prayer and get right with God. Wake up and think about God and ask God for a warm heart and God to guide our direction and God to give us inspiration. And what is God's will, plan, and purpose for our life? Because God is intimately interested in each and every one of us. God is intimately interested in you and your life. Shouldn't you be interested in what God is interested in as well? Are you really prepared for the days to come? Let's get our hearts, minds, bodies, souls right. So when changes do happen and when circumstances change, the God is able to move us effortlessly, navigate us effortlessly through those changes while they're happening in real time. It's like a martial artist, A martial artist may train his whole life. His whole life go and train and get the movements and get the power right. And and then that one moment, maybe it's only 20 or 30 seconds long, the altercation, or maybe it's an hour long, and that martial artist moves with fluidity and is ready, and the body reacts the way it's supposed to react, and his family is defended. And all of that lifetime of work that went into that self-defense for that very moment happened. It's all about being prepared. It's all about getting ready. But it's the day-to-day discipline, the day-to-day practice that really brings it out into outer manifestation. Are you really prepared for the days to come? Because most people aren't. And you got to be aware of that. You know, there's movies about the zombie apocalypse, but how far away is that when people is hungry and starving and the news ain't telling them what to do and everybody's saying it was that guy and that guy that was the problem, and they don't have food, they don't have gasoline, they don't have water. Now, hopefully it don't come to that. I'm not saying it's going to come to that, but if it does, are you really prepared for the days to come? Because it's all about spirit. Can God move you effortlessly? I don't know how many times when I've been out in the world and danger comes and God has just moved me right out of the way of the danger. Just like, okay, boom, boom, boom. And it just happens. But I'll flip it to the other way. When I haven't been in my discipline, when I hadn't been in my right emotional state, when I've been doubting God and my faith was lagging. And then all of a sudden, one of those things it happens and I wasn't really prepared and I stumbled and I faltered and then God had to carry me through, pick me up and drag me along while I'm getting scraped and bruised on the ground while it's happening. Now I'm telling you from experience, my nobility, when you're prepared, God can move you in ways that it's effortless. God just slips and slides us. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, in the words of the immortal Muhammad Ali. You feel me? So before we go, I just wanted to read, before I go here, I just wanted to give a quick message, just let everybody know what's up and some things that have been on my heart, my soul, my mind. Just wanted to share with my nobility. And, I really urge those of you with a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop to pick up your Gospel of Hip Hop and go to page, to the 6 Overstanding the Seasons, page 314. And I'm going to just read a little bit about this, because seasons change, seasons come and seasons go. But this actually is talking about the seasons of life, like, not just the physical seasons, but our spiritual seasons as well. Those who are unaware of the spiritual seasons of life believe that when the storms of life beat upon their circumstances, they are doomed to that situation for the rest of their lives. It seems as if the storms will never end, and in desperation, they make decisions under pressure, which force them to make the wrong decisions in life. In the long run, such desperate decisions only prolong their suffering. That's like the people who got in a fight at the store. That was the wrong decision at the wrong time. The city's facing a crisis, and they're adding to the crisis by getting in a fight because they didn't have control of their emotional well-being, their intellectual well-being. They were stuck in a state of fear. See, it was physical circumstances that caused it, but they were spiritually not ready for the storm. And in this case, it was a literal storm that they weren't ready for. Attuned hip-hoppers who have acquired the knowledge of life seasons and cycles occasionally go through the same storms everyone else goes through. Yep, just went through it just like everybody else. The rain fell on my house, just the snow fell on this house, just like everybody else. However, with an awareness that the storm is always temporary, attuned hip-hoppers remain calm and mentally still, allowing the storm to pass over them. Others without knowledge of life seasons try to run from the storm only to wind up running with it. That includes running out and panic shopping. Even more people miss valuable opportunities and lessons that can be found in the midst of the storm by running away from the storm. The same applies to the sunny days. Now, I just wanted to read that a little bit, but this is for those of you who have a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop, or you don't have one and you've been thinking about it. Get a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop. You can go to krs-1.org, or you can go to Amazon or eBay. Has copies of it. I saw one for $12 for a used copy that was in good condition. I bought it, but there's always other copies up there. But go to the seasons, the 6 Overstanding the Seasons, and read the seasons, because it will really prepare you for 2021, prepare you for the days to come. So, but that was just something I wanted to share with you from the Gospel of Hip Hop. And then really what I wanted to talk about too was the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. This is where the Tao, where Taoism gets its written lineage from. Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching. Sometime nobody really knows the exact dates of when it was written, but it's scholars have said that it's sometime between the 6th and 4th century BC, before the Common Era, or some people say before Christ. Nothing's before Christ, so there is no BC. That's a fallacy. But before the Common Era is what BC actually means. So 2020. So 2,500 years ago, between 2,500 and 3,000 years ago, this book, the Tao Te Ching, was written by Lao Tzu. And I'm not going to get into the whole history of Taoism, but Taoism is really an important part of my life. It was the first thing outside of Christianity that I really gravitated towards. As a 13-year-old, I went into I was like everybody. I loved Bruce Lee. Took a karate class and saw a book there. I was introduced to a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, The Way of the Intercepting Fist by Bruce Lee. One of the greatest books ever written. But that's where Bruce Lee got the Tao Te Ching, influenced the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And even in hip hop, the RZA wrote the book, The Tao of Wu. The Tao of Wu, a great book of knowledge and wisdom and meditations from the RZA, Wu-Tang Clan, the RZA. But the Tao of Wu, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, this is the original, the Tao Te Ching. This is where that it's a certain way of thinking, of approaching the world, and it's a little more it's actually a lot more abstract than what we think in the West. These are contemplative things. This is going to ask some questions, and I'll commentary on this a little bit, but it's verse 44. It's the Tao Te Ching number 44. I just want to read this to you. And these questions, they're really not questions to be answered. There's not an answer to these questions. They are to be contemplated, though. They are to be thought about. And so here we go. Excerpt 44 from the Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu. And this is an old Shambhala Dragon edition. Shambhala, great translations that they did. These are some of the first translations of it into the English language. And Lao Tzu, this one's translated by John C.H. Wu, a scholar. And, I've got another copy over here, a more modern copy of the Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell. Very good, different. I really love his version, his interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita. A brilliant linguist and philosopher in his own right. But Stephen Mitchell, he wrote the Tao Te Ching. He did this translations more for kind of the way we think and speak in modern English, today's language, as so to speak. But actually, this version right here, I love this because there's a little more abstractness to it, and I'll see if we'll read the differences. But I want to read this one first, and then we'll go over this just to kind of highlight and put the theme to home that I'm talking about. Because what we're talking about is, are you prepared for the days to come? And one of the best ways to prepare our soul and spirit is not to read things so linearly, in such a linear fashion. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. And this is how you think, and this is what you do, and then this is what you do, and this is what you do. And this is the answer, and this is the steps, and this is the steps, and this is the steps. That's why I love the Tao Te Ching, because Taoism is about the flow. Taoism is about the movement of nature and being one with that movement of nature. Be realizing that we are that nature itself. Where does it begin and where does it end? We are it. We are it. So let's begin. Excerpt 44 from the Tao Te Ching. As for your name and your body, which is the dearer? Which one do you hold more dear to you, your name or your body? And just thinking about that part right there, like that's a deep question. That's how you see, the answer isn't your name or your body. Which one do you hold more dear, your name or your body? Well, my reputation I hold dear. I might die for my reputation. I might die for my beliefs. I might die for my principles. I might live for my principles, even better, But if you don't have your body, how are you going to live for anything if the body's gone? Well, Okay, we do live past the body. But see what I'm saying here? We start thinking a little bit deeper about these questions that are really important in life. So, as for your name and your body, which is the dearer? As for your body and your wealth, which is the more to be prized? As for gain and loss, which is the more painful? Thus, an excessive love for anything will cost you dear in the end. Attachment. The storing up of too much goods will entail a heavy loss. Think about that. The storing up of too much goods will entail a heavy loss. So I was saying, like people are thinking, oh, okay, if a disaster hits, I've got to have so much food. I can live for 6 months off this food. But what if you got to get out of your house in that 6 months of food? Do you got a car big enough to carry that all? And what about all the gas? You know, can you survive on your own without anything? Can you survive with just your being right there? Because that's the most valuable thing right there. I mean, really thinking about what the Tao is saying. As for your body or your wealth, well, you know, in material wealth, what is material wealth without your body to even enjoy it or put it to use? Isn't the body the most wealthy thing there is? You know, what would you pay for an arm if your arm got chopped off? Like how would you sell your arm? I hope people listening to me would say, hell no, heaven no. You know, I ain't gonna sell my arm for nothing. I think most people would agree. I ain't gonna sell none of my body parts for nothing. Man, this body is priceless. This body is the most valuable thing there is. So, you know, are you prepared for the days to come? Well, if your body, mind, and soul is prepared, you only need what the shoe. You don't even need the shoes on your feet. You just walk and the shoes will find you. You just walk and the food will find you. We just walk and the shelter will find us, or the right destination will arrive right on time, right in the perfect time. That's what it means to be prepared for the days to come. But if we're attached to excessive love for this material world, excessive love for a job, excessive love for, you know, whatever it is, if we're attached to that, then all of a sudden it becomes a weight, it becomes heavy. The storing up of too much goods will entail a heavy loss. A heavy loss. So storing up too much goods and then you got to leave it behind. What was it worth? The acquisition of all those goods, the time it took, the money, the job, the work, and now you don't have them. Could that time have been spent preparing the soul, preparing the life? These are just questions. I don't know the answer for you. I only know the answers for myself. To know when you have enough is to be immune from disgrace. To know when you have enough is to be immune from disgrace. Wow, doesn't that right there speak to 2021 and everybody flossing and still, you know, yo, I say nothing wrong with being fresh and crispy and having some nice things, man. I enjoy this piece I got right here. But to know when you have enough, what is enough, to know what enough is, and know that you have enough, is to be immune from disgrace. I'm not embarrassed about what I don't have. I'm not embarrassed about what I do have, because this isn't where we live. So there is no disgrace for me not having what they say I need. They say I need a brand new car. They say I need to be in debt. They say I need to live here. They say I need to have this, that, and the other. They say I need this much money in my bank. They say I need this many rations to survive a crisis. They say I need this many guns to do this and that. They say that, and if I agree with them, then I live in disgrace because I don't have them. I'm like, oh man, I live in disgrace. Or then I got to try and quench that disgrace for not having enough and then run out and buy it and try and fulfill somebody else's fantasy for me. Nah, that's not how I'm living. That's not how God's instructing us to live. That's not how the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu is even instructing. To know when you have enough is to be immune from disgrace. To know when to stop is to be preserved from perils. Even better to know, didn't it just say, don't try and outrun the storm in the gospel of hip hop? We don't got to outrun the storm when the storm is on us. Let's just chill and see what the lesson of the storm is, knowing that it's going to eventually pass. Whether that's a physical storm, an emotional storm, going through changes in life, the loss of a loved one, a divorce, loss of a job. Those storms of life is when the earth is nurtured, all that water. Texas needed all that water. I know my lawns did. To know when to stop is to be preserved from perils. Only thus can you endure long. And that's what it's about. It's about endurance. I'm working on a sermon arc called The 5 Principles of Persistence. The 5 Principles of Endurance, which is really we'll get to that later, but only to know when to stop is to be preserved from perils. Only thus can you endure long. That's the part I want to talk about. It's the endurance. Being able to endure, that's a spiritual power. That's being still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that God is God. The storms of life are hitting. I'm just chilling. I'm learning my lessons. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And just keep it moving. Don't panic like the rest of the world when the storm hits. There's no need to. There's no need to. So that was the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. This is the Shambhala Classic. They have a little pocket edition that's really great too. That's how I was first introduced to it. I used to drive around from job to job, and when I'd have to wait in line for supplies or when I'd be eating lunch, I'd have this little Tao Te Ching in my pocket. I'd pull it out and just contemplate on it during my lunchtime. Back in my early 20s when I was a landscaper. Lifetime, seems like a whole other lifetime ago, a different life. But I do want to read the Stephen Mitchell Tao Te Ching from you. Same passage, number 44. As I said, you can see with that version it's a little more philosophical, but this version is a little more straightforward. His translation is a little more straightforward, and so this might be the one to get for you if that one. If you didn't enjoy the abstract, shout out to the abstract, one of my favorite MCs, Q-Tip. All right, so this is the Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell. Fame or integrity, which is more important? Well, integrity. See, these ones have. This translation actually has an answer, but it's still a contemplation. What? Fame or integrity, which is more important? Obviously, integrity. Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Well, some say money buys happiness, but you don't want to be sad with a bunch of money, or you'd be happy. If you're happy with a little, you'd be happy with a lot. So happiness is more valuable. Success or failure, which is more destructive? Well, we learn from our failures, but success can be a very destructive force in people's lives if they don't know how to handle it. That one's a little more contemplative, right? Success or failure, which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Timeless wisdom. I mean, this is timeless wisdom right here. Can't front. Be content with what you have. If you have nothing, you still have yourself. And as we've learned, even without this body, we still exist. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. When you realize that nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Remember, hip-hop is the art. Hip-hop, the love of hip-hop, is self-acceptance. We begin with self-acceptance. And that's what we'll close on with what we begin with. In closing, remember, we always begin with self-acceptance. Don't judge yourself for where you are. If there's changes you want to make, just start those changes. Break free from that unconsciousness. Whatever it is that's holding you back, just stop what it's doing and go to it. It's the simplest thing to just stop doing the wrong thing and start doing the right thing for your life. It's the simplest thing to do. You just get out of your own way and start doing that which you know you're supposed to do. Live your purpose. Seek your life purpose. But start from where you're at and accept where you're at, and self-acceptance is that key. If you're an MC and you haven't written a rhyme in a while, Stop what you're doing right now, turn this video off, and write your rhyme immediately. And then the juices will get flowing. You'll start flowing. All right, that's the message from the minister right now. I look forward to just sharing some more wisdom with y'all today. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Great book. I'll be reading from this, but you know, I got a bunch of books. I don't know if you can see them on the video here. Got a bunch of books to just share some wisdom and knowledge with, and it's a good time to increase your library. It's a good time to get back into books and get back into your studies, and also, of course, the Gospel of Hip Hop presented to the Temple of Hip Hop by our teacher KRS-One. I am a recognized intellectual and spiritual contributor in this book. It's actually written in the book my name as a recognized intellectual spiritual contributor to the Gospel of Hip Hop, and I'm so grateful to have been a part of that, to the creation and writing of this book as the teacher was writing it, being there, helping to see it through and get published. Just great that it's in the hands of our nobility now. But I just wanted to wish you all a great week going forward, a great month, a great 2021. Now is the time, and we are the people. The last days of other nations are the first days for us. Peace and so much love to you. And there it is. Hip!